Let's go, baby. We are back. It is a Sunday night here in foggy old London, and we have a pay-per-view to talk about as a more or less de facto AEW pay-per-view review edition of Ruthless discussion. Yes. Normally a show where we would talk all the happenings in the world of wrestling, and it still very much might be, depending on which direction the conversation takes us. But what's happening in the world of professional wrestling right now, and most recently, is, of course, WrestleDream, AEW's latest pay-per-view event, and thus we will talk about it. Before we do, I am your host, of course. I am not Sat. That's Sat. I'm your host, Tempest.
He sat down.
I am sat next to Mr. Sat Niagi, my lovely and wonderful co-host. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. And in the spirit of WrestleDream, it would be funny if we started off like mid-conversation. We started the show mid-conversation. Like we've been on like the whole time, and no one was privy to our conversation until like just now. But yeah, I'm good. It's now 8:09 UK time. We've yet to do a podcast around this time. Monty, shout out to him. He's been talking about how we should do it 8 p.m. slot. Oh man, you gotta do the 8 p.m. slot because that's when the dogs come out at night and all that kind of stuff. Freaks come out at night and all that kind of stuff. So we're waiting for the freaks to come out at night, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about WrestleDream. Let's talk about dunking our head in aquariums and so forth.
I didn't realize an aquarium is just a little water tank.
Yeah, I think that's a lie. I think because I was like, that's a water tank, mate. That's a water tank. Aquarium. Where's the fishes? Because
I assume these guys are more educated than I on the subject, but they just kept saying aquarium. It's like, yeah, we're taking a trip to Ripley's Believe It or Not aquarium in downtown Toronto on our way back from the show. Now, we will be indeed getting into this show. Thank you for everybody that is watching live currently. Make sure that you've liked this video. Subscribe to the Wrestle Purist channel if you haven't already. And if you want to have your comments read out on the show, get involved in the discussion. You can super chat in. We'll read them all out, and we'll look forward to having you involved. This show, we sat down.
Yes, we did.
You're always sat.
I'm always sat down. Yes.
I was sat down listening to the lovely conversation that we had on just this past Thursday. And we were talking about Dynamite, as we do. We do our Dynamite review podcast, and it was probably the most fired up I've been over a completely bland episode of pro wrestling television in quite some time. As I'm one to do, I get fired up. I care deeply about things. Anyone that follows me on Twitter knows this, how I've been reacting to things over the weekend. Maybe we'll get to it. Maybe not. But I watched this pay-per-view, and going into it, it was like AEW pay-per-views always are good. Maybe you can cherry pick a few that have failed to live up at all, but for the most part, you're basically guaranteed to have a pretty good show. And thus I was like, I know I'm going to see a good show, but I'm not terribly excited for like any the majority of matches. And what a fool I was, because what a show this turned out to be.
Right?
I was completely blown away by this show. And again, maybe that's me being foolish and doubting the work rate output of the AEW roster, because on pay-per-view, no one quite delivers in the 2020s like AEW does. And my goodness, we were wondering for a long time whether or not we were going to get the next big direction of AEW's storytelling, what the hook is going to be going through the fall into the winter, whether we're just, spinning our tires, waiting around for the C2 to start or what have you. And I feel like at least a decent amount of these questions were answered here on this pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot more direction in terms of the world championship picture. That's exciting. Felt like we got more or less a definitive-ish end to the Darby Allin, Jon Moxley program. If they run this one back again, I can't imagine they're going to do a fifth different gimmick match, maybe a sixth. If you go all the way back to, I'm looking at every pay-per-view involving Jon Moxley for like the last 6 months has involved some chicanery.
Free Stages of Hell.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Why not? Because we've had Anarchy in the Arena, into a Texas death match, into a lights out cage match, into a coffin match, into an I Quit match. So the man is ticking off this bingo card of all the gimmick matches that he's not had this year. I can't imagine they're going to do another one at Full Gear. I'd like them to go in a different direction. Maybe something involving,
exploding barbed wire. What?
Oh yeah. Oh god, that's what this was meant to be. They got to redeem themselves, do an exploding barbed wire death match. But that all of it came to a head on this show. I guess it's a pretty good place to start. Start with the main event. It's the biggest happening on the show. My god. Yeah. It's definitely the thing I took the most notes on. Just little things I wanted to make notes. Sure I took some notes. I don't know if people know this. I very seldom take notes for these things, right? In former lives and in past experiences, I'm not one to like document every single thing that happens on a show. I just kind of remember stuff. I don't know if people find that hard to believe or not, given what rattles around in this year brain. But generally speaking, not much of a note taker in terms of podcasts. However, this is one where I was like, this is going to be like a 4.5 hour pay-per-view with an hour plus pre-show. I'm gonna take some notes just so I don't forget a match or whatever. Some of these are absolutely nothing. Some of them are just the result, and I didn't even bother to write down any thoughts about the match because I probably didn't have one. Half a page of these notes are Darby Allin and Jon Moxley's match, because we wondered what they were gonna do. The prevailing theory was murder.
Yes.
Prevailing theory was that someone was going to have to be murdered in order to produce the 2 words, 5 letters that this match is named after. And we got close. We got real close. Certainly an attempt was made on this here show because indeed you could go through every heinous thing that these two men did to each other on this show. And you could go through every single thing that all the members of the Death Riders got involved in. And I got some of them written down, whether it be what I think is probably the most heinous thing I may have ever seen in a pro wrestling match. Jon Moxley putting a spike underneath Darby Allin's fingernail. Yeah, I'm sorry. I refuse. I found a new spot that has reached the bottom of the tier list in terms of things I would ever possibly take in pro wrestling. I'd take a slam into tax. I'd do barbed wire, this, that, the other thing. You probably convinced me to do fire before you're getting spikes being put under fingernails. I'm not having it. It's like my ick. I don't fuck with it.
I'd rather do the whole stick under the thumb thing than going through fire. Sorry. Now that's fire. What's the word? Fire don't job to you, man. Like you can't convince fire to ease up on the amount of flames that you're gonna get on your skin, no matter how much you put those gel or whatever it is, flame repellent gels or whatever it is the code you try to do. And
I was about to say that fire went into business for himself,
right? Nah, I'm good.
No, it was the first one. The first real big spot where I was like, oh, this is the direction we're going. And indeed it is pretty horrible. It's interesting. I looked around, saw other people's kind of their thoughts on the show and everything. And the word around town is that a lot of what was planned for this show by those involved had to be changed because of the Missouri State Athletic Commission. Once again, everybody needs to write a letter campaign and everything to get sports commissions out of pro wrestling. Because if you are wondering why this match of all matches was the only one this year where Jon Moxley did not bust himself wide open and bleed everywhere, it's because there was no blood allowed on this show. Some people got bloody lips and whatnot, but there was no blading to be done, no hard way juice, none of that. This was a blood-free pay-per-view for the most part. Also meant no crowd brawling. So any of these big things, no one was allowed to go into the crowd in these shows. They might have spilled over a barricade, but they would have come right back. There was no running around here. So a lot of the things that might have been planned for this main event and for the Hurt Syndicate tornado tag, all of which had to be changed. As far as I know, people were not particularly happy about this. But that said, I think they managed to do pretty gosh darn well considering the circumstances. if they were put under like constraints for these matches, you really couldn't tell just watching them, because they still went absolutely balls to the wall nuts doing spikes under thumbnails and various other bits. There are a lot of good things in honestly, I really enjoyed this main event. It will not be for everyone's taste. That is totally fine. There are some pretty, visceral looking things. There's some pretty gnarly looking bumps. There's probably some things that people just won't want to see in their wrestling or whatever. However, there are also some of my favorite storytelling moments throughout the entire year of AEW in this match in particular and elsewhere on the show as well. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. 2 of them, in fact. One of my favorite bits was Darby Allin choking Jon Moxley almost picture perfect, the exact same way that Moxley submitted at All In to lose the title to Hangman Page, this time with the flag instead of a chain, but like over the top rope, draped, hanging there, frantic, the look in his eyes, he's panicking and all this. But this time he managed to get out of it, whereas he was not able to at All In. Generally speaking, though, Sat, what did you think of this main event match?
So I thought like in the beginning it was quite like what's the word JR likes to use. It was quite methodical in the beginning. It was quite plodding.
Meandering.
It was meandering in the beginning, and I feel like because it was like a walk and brawl kind of situation. It was Moxley doing a lot of walking, and then there's a lot of making Darby suffer. I feel like once it got to the middle portions of the match before the Death Riders came out, and that's when they start kicking into the next gear. I feel like once you had the whole skewers under the fingernail, that's when the adrenaline started rushing. That's when I started to feel like, oh, I'm alive, I'm awake, I'm feeling something towards this match, because it was a case of like he took him around there, am I slamming on the steel steps, I'm gonna push him over there, I'm gonna throw him over there. But I feel like once that happened, that's when you start getting visceral emotions. I think that once they started to make each other suffer, that's when you're like, okay, this match is gonna go to places. And I know a lot of people had, I don't want to say high expectations, but they had expectations they're gonna witness a massacre. And I was worried because I always feel like AEW, especially how they seem to be more loose in terms of how much violence is conducted in the ring compared to like WWE. Because WWE went through the whole Owen Hart situation and concussion stuff to be like, oh, we're gonna be safe around here. And I was worried that AEW is like one big accident away from being like, we're gonna be sanitized as well. So these are the 2 guys you worry about the most, because they're the 2 guys, Moxley and Darby Allin, that will be willing to push the envelope to the point where you're like, we need someone of sane mind to step in and be like, nah, that doesn't work for me, brother. That's not going to be good. But I feel like it was a good match. Was it a decent conclusion? You could say it probably was more. They're trying to be poetic about it, because a part of me does feel like if there was ever a time to bring in an exploding barbed wire death match, it'll be between these 2. But I feel like the match served what it needed to do, and I'm hoping we get consequences for Moxley losing big matches, especially if you're Death Riders. You're following this guy who talks a big game, and you guys are holding your end of the bargain of taking people out, but your main guy is not leading by example. So as much as I've enjoyed Moxley as a heel, if it was up to me, he'll keep this character going. But I feel like if you're following a narrative, there needs to be progression in terms of how he hasn't been the leader that he was like a year ago, when he was putting plastic bags over their head and Drano and spilling about his kind of manifesto. I feel like something needs to happen. But as much as people like to talk about Claudio and Pac taking over leader, Pac, mostly because he's more of the talker of everyone in that group, is more believable as a menace. Because I feel like everyone can spill about how they hate certain things, but it doesn't dig deep the way Moxley does. I feel like Pac is the closest. So if you're going to choose someone to be the next leader, because I know like people like Philip Lindsay, shout out to him, he's saying that, oh, it should be Daniel Garcia. And I like Daniel Garcia, but I don't believe when you've got a group full of killers, like he could be a killer himself, but he was doing the hip thrust for ages. He needs to find that killer identity again before I believe that he can slap, Claudio Castagnoli around in the face and, rile Pac up to listen to him. I feel like Pac is the one. It makes sense that since he's come back, right? Maybe he's the shift. He's the mood shift that you're waiting for it to happen. But we'll break down into it as we go further into the match. But yeah, I enjoyed the match for what it was. I enjoyed the rival a certain person, old man, someone.
Yes, indeed. I think generally, like, I definitely agree that of all the people that you're going to worry about the lengths that they will go in a big hardcore blow off match like this, where it is like, you're going to have to kill one of them in order to get them to quit, as like, well, if anybody might actually walk a little too close to that line one time, it would probably be these two lads. Fortunately, I don't think they ever particularly got to the point where I was worried for people's health. I think they did a very good job to present as such. But personally, I wasn't worried because I was watching them and it felt like they were actually being quite safe while doing very dangerous, painful things. And I'm fine with that. You know, we had a lot of good moments in this. You know, they did a long sequence of Moxley whipping Darby with his belt, and we got a real nice "thank you, sir, may I have another" kind of moment where Darby was like beckoning to him to get him to do more, at which point he really did, but Darby fired up, went over, jumped on Mox's back, and they continued their brawl that way. So kept up the energy while Darby was still going through all the pain. And I think that is a very good, important thing to highlight in all of this, because this very much could end up being a match where it is just, you know, you kill Darby for 20 minutes, he fires up, does some stuff, and makes Moxley quit, and that could be the structure of it. But they do a really good job. Darby Allin particularly is very good wrestler. It's structuring these kind of matches of always making it seem like he's got that little bit of extra babyface fire to, like, even if he's in a really bad way, he can break through and have a flurry of offense to let people know that he's still in it. I think it goes a long way, and especially in a match like this. But yeah, I mean, we never got fire. We got lighter fluid, but we never got fire. And it's always worry when I see the lighter fluid go on people. It's like, well, now you've done the first bit. You can't put that lighter fluid back in the bottle, you know? So, like, if ever an open flame gets introduced into this match, I will be shitting bricks. But it never did. Mox managed to cut that off, wipe himself clean, I hope. He tased Darby at one point with their little cattle prod deal. That was good fun. This is when Marina was getting involved. She hit a low blow on Darby, and from this point on, the Death Riders kind of made it just gang warfare. And hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, Hangman might have his hands full going forward a little bit more than, you know. Yes, obviously. I would hope so, Chad. I would hope it can't be shoot lighter fluid. But again, if anybody is going to be nuts enough, it would be these two guys, right?
Now it's baby oil. If I could put my money on it, get some baby oil, some coconut oil, like on my beard.
Oh, I love a little bit of beard oil. Oh,
you gotta make it shine, man. Gotta make it shine.
Oh, it's nice and soft. Can't be catching on anything. This portion of the match was really, really fun, I thought. Everybody doing their darndest to play their part, do it really well. You know, you're immediately like, this is, as soon as Darby starts dousing Mox with lighter fluid, this is when, you know, Yuta and Garcia run down, they're getting involved. And this is where Claudio and Pac just start jumping him. Claudio doing one of the most insane spots I've ever seen in pro wrestling. I would say that you could do this spot 100 times and it would never look this good again, but that just sounds like doubt of the great man that is Claudio Castagnoli, and I know better than that. I bet he could nail this lawn dart shot better than most. Indeed, he lifts Darby up over his head, looks like he's going to drop him through a pair of tables at ringside, goes, no, turns around, runs across the ring, and Spike Dudley presses this poor Darby Allin all the way from the inside of the ring onto the announce table, and you could not do it better. It was a perfect bullseye, like, incredible. And this elicited the biggest response from me as I was watching it this afternoon. Absolutely blown away. Tremendous spot. Of course, eventually, Moxley gets into the sentimental bits of this match. And this is what really starts to hit it home for me. This is where I really locked into this match and was really interested because, yeah, it's a stunt show. You know, they're doing all these things. How far are they going to go? That's what people are watching this match for. But then as soon as Moxley starts getting in Darby's face, after he hits the Death Rider off the apron through two tables, he starts yelling at the referee and the people and everything, talking about how none of them care about Darby Allin. but he cares. He doesn't want Darby Allin to die. But if that's what it's going to take, he's going to do it, and he's going to be pissed. He's going to be pissed doing it. But if he's got to do it, he's got to do it. But it was the care that he has. From that point on, you really see like Mox saying he does not want to do this. He still is psychotic enough to do it, but he's upset. He's at that point introducing a big tank full of water to try and drown Darby Allin live on pay-per-view. And he's upset. Every time he does it, he's like, quit. No? Okay. I guess you have to die then. I don't want to kill you though. Can you stop? All right. I guess you're going to die. And this is the bit where I'm like, I think they did things pretty safely, because I'm watching this and I'm like, okay, if anything was going to get me scared in this, it would have been this spot. However, I'm watching Darby's head. He's holding his breath. He's being dunked in there for like 9 seconds at a time tops. So, and I'm not seeing any bubbles coming out of his mouth, right? If he was going in there and it was all like, blah, 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 like really struggling, then I'm like, okay, now an accident would be all it would take for a tragedy to occur. But they never even came close to that.
Watergate.
Yeah. Again, in 2025. Indeed. At which point, this is where the climax of the match happens. The lights go out. Everybody starts losing their minds. And who do we have but Old Man Sting with the whitest hair you've ever seen in your life?
Yep.
Santa Claus wished he had white hair like this.
Nice, thick, strong hair as well.
Smokes. Yeah, he's still got it. You know, it's not thinning by any means. It's just whatever the opposite of jet black hair is what he's got. Just pure Snow White hair. Incredible. With the beard as well.
Love
big
it.
White beard with a black streak down the middle, full face paint, takes out the Death Riders, smashes the tank of water, picks up Marina Shafir, takes her backstage, leaves the bat to Darby Allin, who starts teeing off like the Blue Jays better do tonight on Jon Moxley. And Darby Allin puts him in the Scorpion Death Drop, hits the Coffin Drop, puts him in the Scorpion Death Lock, and goddamn if immediately Jon Moxley quit and was out of there. I don't know if they were running up on time, because like Darby immediately jumps up, holds the flag up, and they go off the air, you know, but it was my one gripe with the match was that like, if Mox had struggled and Darby had like really leaned back or something like that, it just felt like it was over a little quick once we got there. But again, they might be like, oh, we're off the air in a minute, so you better quit quick, Mox. But generally speaking, I thought this was a very satisfying, hopefully, end to this very long program we've had between Darby Allin and Jon Moxley. It's been over a year building up to this. I mean, if you look at it, these guys were wrestling from the very beginning of Dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is one of those matches that I think we saw on one of those early Dynamites in like 2019. I could be wrong, but definitely into 2020. These two have always been on each other's radar, in each other's orbit, all of that. Fantastic long build, you know, the same way that like it took 4 tries for Darby to beat Cody, and that took like a year and a half of long-term storytelling. This is even more. It obviously wasn't as consistent as the Darby and Cody story was, but finally this should be considered one of the bigger wins in Darby Allin's career, and a very, very fine match to boot.
I just wanted to add the reason why Darby Allin wasn't able to successfully choke out Jon Moxley is because he doesn't have the biceps like Hangman to actually lock in. And also, I feel like a flag, you're quite able to manipulate around it. While when you got a chain, you can't manipulate a steel chain. When that's locked around your neck is manipulated by the chain. But I feel like with a flag, he was able to like you can slip, your hand can slip, you can able to to maneuver around it. So I feel like there was a good reason for why Mox didn't tap out. But yeah, the match was what it needed to be. I feel like Moxley did the Gunter special immediately, and then I'm with you. I do feel like the most satisfying victories you feel like is when the heel who seem to be unbeatable for the longest time has to struggle, because for him to lose instantly almost feels like it goes against character. It's like no one can beat you before, but why is this particular move why he tapped out so quick? And then I was wondering if the whole water, the little bit of puddle of water, which was kind of like meant to play a part into the match as well. Like, oh, he's kind of drowning a bit. His face is falling into water. That's why he probably tapped out. I don't know. He's having like, childhood memories, or when he nearly drowned in a lake or something. That'd be like part of the lore, part of his promo. Who knows?
I've read mocks. I don't recall ever a drowning story coming up.
I've got mocks, I've got mocks, the book somewhere. Like, there's so many books I need to read, but I need to finish the AJ Lee book I've been reading for like 5 years. And I told you I've been reading for 5 years because I was reading everything in between. And now I've suspended reading books in between until I finish that. I started listening to Soraya's book on, on audio. So that was different. Because I've never done audiobooks before, so that was a different experience. But yeah, go back to what you're saying. Sorry.
No, I mean, I thought this was a very satisfying way to cap off what had been a very good pay-per-view. My overall kind of thoughts about this pay-per-view, now that we've talked about the main selling point, the return of Sting, the defeat of Jon Moxley and everything. I really, really enjoyed WrestleDream. I think it really helped that for the most part, there were some down points for sure, but this was a crowd that was into this show. They were ready to cheer for their favorites and boo the heels and everything in between. And that was from the pre-show onward. They were very into this show. And I think that helped tremendously, but we just had absolutely nothing to enjoy on an elevated level on Dynamite this past week. And we were crying out to the heavens, please, please let there be some sort of hook coming in and not teaming up with Eddie Kingston, but giving me a reason to care about what's happening on the pay-per-view and give me a reason to care about what's going to happen on Dynamite. And up and down this show, I think they delivered on that. And in a way that AEW can, where we had big narrative moments, because immediately preceding this, we had our World Championship match. Very good stuff. We had talked about how Hangman Page and Samoa Joe left a lot to be desired from like the emotional storytelling perspective. We had said that they really didn't, drive home the point on the go home show. And that was very disappointing because I thought that there was still something, that they could really lean into here. My pitch of it all was to have, Samoa Joe bring up the previous time that they had wrestled at Revolution 2024 in the three-way with Swerve, and bring up that any man who would quit intentionally just to keep another man from winning is no man and therefore no champion. Bring that up and question the manhood and all of that sort of thing of Hangman Page. And we never got that. Not to say that we will now, but going into the pay-per-view, it kind of seemed like one of those one and done kind of feuds. Felt like kind of a pay-per-view challenger of the month type thing. We'd have our match, they'd shake hands, they'd move on, and the ops would just go back to doing their trio stuff. But that is very much not the case. It was wrestled as such. It looked as if it was going to play out as such all the way up until the very end, because Hangman Page and Samoa Joe had a very good match. Very good match. I would say that this match was very competently wrestled. This match felt like it was a match wrestled by a couple of veterans that knew what they were doing, knew how to get a crowd that was maybe a little bit tired, maybe a little bit up and down at various points. They knew how to get them involved. And by the end, everybody on their feet, really excited for the finish. Three buckshot lariats in a row, some really good moments in between. Hangman Page calling Joe a motherfucker really got people going. And then after the match, shake hands and the Samoa Joe heel turn. The ops as a unit turning heel on Hangman Page, beating him down, hitting the muscle buster on the AEW belt. And now I'm like, okay, that means there's still time for them to cut these promos. And now, potentially with added vigor, Samoa Joe will probably have a comeback match at Full Gear, I would have to imagine, against Hangman Page. And in the time between then, maybe we do start getting a little bit more of that narrative emotional hook. very excited for all of that. And considering what I thought was a very good match, very happy to see it again.
Yeah, it was the case of like the big monster heel. Well, even that's the role Joe played in the match, trying to keep the valiant babyface down. And then it was like Hangman overcame. He finally slayed his demon. He can finally add Samoa Joe to the list of legendary names that he's defeated, which includes Kenny Omega, which includes Bryan Danielson, guys of that era. And he never beat Punk. That's a shame. He could have collected all them, Infinity Gauntlets. But anyway, but it is the what you will remember is the post-match beatdown. And what made me laugh was because I tweeted not too long ago. I was like, one day Samoa Joe's gonna wake up and be like, "Man, I just fancy turn heel today, man. It's just that time." You know. Because if also Joe's heel turns always feel like that. It does feel like he woke up one day and he was just like, "Man, I'm sick of this shit. I'm just gonna."
I think I hate everyone today. Actually,
no, don't even hate everyone. I'm tired of tolerating people. I'm just gonna stop tolerating because it just seemed like he tolerates people. And the first time he seems like he's not in that spot is when he's with Hobbs and Shibata, and it is quite interesting how. It seems like, okay, Joe's lost his way. Can his comrades help him, steer him back on the path of righteousness? And then you look at a couple of guys, and as the kids say, these are a couple of demons. Powerhouse Hobbs, he turned on his mate, Ricky Starks, once upon a time, wherever that guy is nowadays. And you got Shibata, his brain, he's all scrambled like eggs, He can't think straight. So I like the fact that, because when I talk about the trios match that's happening on Dynamite, I love the fact that now that the Hurt Syndicate is now de facto baby faces, it's no longer even them being tweeners. It's now like it's fully fledged coming out the other side of the tunnel. And like who's gonna be the new heelish bullish group? The Ops. And it makes sense because I like Philip Lindsay said it's in the name. The Ops, they are the opposition. It's not a nice name because people talk about in life, man, I got Ops, man, I got Ops against me, I got so many Ops. And you're like, who's this Oops you talk about? Who's this Oops? I was like, no. And I like the fact that there is like a shift in it because it keeps the group fresh. They've done all they need to do as babyface Avengers because that's where the Ops were in the beginning. It was great. I like that because I feel like anytime you got a group of heels, taking liberties, you can always rely on the Ops just to come down and save the day, even the odds, and help you out. But it kind of ran out and played its course because the trios matches weren't happening as much as we wanted to. It seemed like it was once every other month, and it was just one and done feuds. You want something to sink your teeth into. So for me, as much as it gives Hangman and Samoa Joe much more tangible stories to tell in terms of how Joe is no man of honor. They had a pseudo deal, and I can see Joe saying, "I didn't make the deal. You said the deal of like, you beat me and I shake your hands." I do like the fact that Samoa Joe has got a little wiggle room to be like, "I did not, agree to this. It was your fairy tale mindset." I can't wait. I'm hoping that the Ops and the Hurt Syndicate is not one and done. Because as much as it seems like Hangman can screw the Ops over and then, Hurt Syndicate wins the title, I just want to see the promo between MVP and Samoa Joe going back and forth over the title. That's what I want to see. So that's why it's the greedy side of me that want to see the Beatdown Clan semi-reunion, like going at it, or the Beatdown Clan universe, as they say. They all belong in the same universe. The Ops and the Hurt Syndicate and the Hurt Business all belongs in the Beatdown Clan universe. They're all related. Always missing low key.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate. In another world, if a few people wouldn't be quite so difficult to work with, I'm sure we'd have low key in AEW. I'm sure we'd have Austin Aries in AEW. But that's not the world we live in, unfortunately. This, though, I agree. I think there's plenty of narrative potential with Hangman and Samoa Joe. I think there is a lot more room. Again, I've been burned on, expecting more out of the trios division time and time again. We've talked about that already on this show. But I am very excited to see a little bit more out of just the overall Ops package, because they did. You're right. They were just, they were the troops that you would send in against the Death Riders. And then when the Death Riders weren't, the world championship threat anymore, they kind of lost their purpose, their reason for being. And now they might have a little bit more purpose again. I would really like if this turn and overall presentation of the Ops eventually becomes a project as to how to get Powerhouse Hobbs to a main event level.
Please,
You know what I mean?
please,
That's
yes.
what I was thinking. Like when it all happened, I was like, I get what they're doing. Like, I would imagine the world championship match for Full Gear is going to be Hangman and Samoa Joe again, possibly as a street fight or something like that. Who knows? But like, they'll run that back with a new babyface heel dynamic. I was like, would it have been more interesting if Hobbs pulled the trigger and like killed Hangman, you know? And I don't know how that would then play out between he and Joe and whatever. But either way, my point is, I want some progression for Powerhouse Hobbs. Him at the beginning of the year, this year, one of the highlights when he won that casino gauntlet, got his shot against Mox, had a really good TV title match, and then had a very solid little feud with Big Bill. That looked like it was really going to be something for him. And it was for a bit. Like, it culminated with him winning the trios titles, but unfortunately the trios titles just kind of like, everyone who wins them just ends up stagnating for a little bit. And I would very much like to see some more upward mobility for him because I think he's awesome. Hopefully we're going to get that. I'm very excited to see Shibata again as a heel because that man has not been a heel in a minute. That guy, like, when was the last time that Katsuyori Shibata was a heel? Was it like immediately upon returning to New Japan when he was a bit of like he was a bit of a, not necessarily a tweener, but he had to earn people's respect because people didn't like him.
He left the company. Yeah, that little pussy. You know, he left the company when they needed him, and he got his ass whipped in MMA. I also hold that part in. As much as people like talk about this great Shibata, his win-loss record is abysmal, man. I'm over. Nakamura's got better. When not dissing Nakamura's my guy. I'm trying to explain like this is how much of a badass Nakamura is. By the way, I'm just saying that. Like that's why Inoki loved this guy. Inoki is in my time period. As much people hate it. I hate it too. Fuck you, Fujita. I was trying to say, yeah, Shibata left. You know, he came back while everything's flowing again. Hi guys, I'm back. I'm back to be a musketeer again. No, fuck you, man. You gotta earn your redemption arc, man. You could be a tween if you want to be. You wear black trunks if all you want. You will never be Inoki because Inoki doesn't quit like you did.
The going got tough and he got going. And my God, I would love. I wish that I could do a goddamn video essay about Katsuyori Shibata at some point.
You can. You will.
I'd love to. It won't get posted anywhere because New Japan is, still copyright taken down and everything.
I forgot
like that. It's really unfortunate. Yeah. Stop doing that. Maybe people might actually discover your goddamn promotion
and learn
let people talk about it. Anyway, I don't know if the horses left the barn regarding seeing any sort of like character of Katsuyori Shibata. I would love it. I would absolutely adore if we got Shibata like doing things. I had said for a while that I wish they would have done a Shibata Okada program when Okada got to the company, because that's the last opponent Shibata had before his brain got scrambled. That would be a fun thing, having to reckon with the guy who was there when your life changed and all that. But it's never come close. I don't know if it ever will. I don't know if everyone will just be satisfied with the idea of Shibata just wrestling again and not really being involved at a higher level. But one way or another, I'm looking forward to Dynamite because we have a new top heel trio at the very least for this next pay-per-view cycle. That's very exciting. That feels fresh. Samoa Joe's great. I'm looking forward to this whole presentation. The Ops and the Hurt Syndicate on Wednesday for the trios titles. Who knows which way is it going to go? I think it'd be interesting if they immediately lost the trios titles. Possibly they could if Hangman comes in and beats everybody's ass. I think it would be a good way to lead Samoa Joe away from the battle, perhaps, and leave the others to fight 3-on-2 and then lose. But we will see.
I want to add something really quickly before we do segue away, because I feel like we're winding down on it. It could, I don't know. I feel like a smart booker. I'm not saying that Tony Khan's not smarter than most. He's probably the smartest in North America, but the bar's quite low. Not to diss. I mean, ChatGPT has been introduced into some companies.
Don't get me started, bro. Don't get me started. It will be the rest of the show. I will lose my mind, lose my voice, and everything. But go on.
What I'm trying to say is, it would be very smart in terms of gravitational pull that if this entire trios match was designed to get Hangman Page just a little bit closer to Bobby Lashley. Do you know what I mean? Because up until now, there's no reason for them to feud. But now you're getting a bit closer, you're getting closer to the new potential pool of opponents. And I also do feel like, because this is Ruthless discussion, and this is what we do. Is it time for a shakeup on who should be the top heel group on AEW? De facto wise, it has been the Death Riders, but it does feel like, the Don Callis family has been increasing in numbers in terms of dominance, but they've been on that upper mid-card trail for quite a bit. And I feel like with the return of a certain person that might be gone for a year, who knows, it was almost time for them to go to the next level. But it does seem like Don Callis family and the Ops, there's a jockeying a position to change the cycle, because it is like a cycle. You get this certain group runs for a bit, it's like, I feel like, was it the Inner Circle had a run for a bit, and then you had the
Jericho
MJF
Appreciation Society, the
Was it-
Pinnacle.
the Pinnacle for you have cycles when groups are, and the one that never got going was it Undisputed Kingdom? That's
The
a shame.
Firm.
And you know what? Yeah, the Firm's gonna be like a footnote, and I feel like we're gonna just do it for the rest of our lives. Remember the Firm? What the heck was that about? For me,
AEW needed another option when people are talking about the worst factions of all time. They weren't satisfied with just having the Nightmare Collective. They were like, no. We need another one. We need a better one than that. Give me the Firm.
You know what? I have been thinking about how side tab, this is what we do here. MJF is coming back, and it's like, what can we do different? And I've been screaming up in the high heavens to give him a group, because as much salute to him by himself, he does his best. But I also feel like MJF as a character is the most compelling when he has someone to play off, because he's had, right? Wardlow was whatever. Sean Spears, for me, as much as Wardlow was Wardlow, Sean Spears for me is his number one lackey, because he knew what he was doing. He was like, I'm gonna just hot dog behind you. Hey Max, baby, I got you,
Yeah.
And that's why I've been saying, like, because it looks like Jericho may not come back. I like I like Big Bill a lot,
and you cannot lie.
I mean,
I like Big Bills, and I cannot lie.
Listen, I like me some Big Bills, and you got Brian Keith and so forth. But I feel like Big Bill will fit with MJF, and I have been saying that Camille, Brickhouse Camille. I know, in real life on social media, she's whatever. I'm just talking about, they hired her for a reason. We don't like people sitting at home. We can't pick and choose who we like to sit at home. I don't want anyone to sit at home. I'm just thinking about wrestlers doing nothing that they can like be lackeys for MJF, because I feel like that would be different. He's got a campaign to be champion. Look how it worked out for Ricochet. Sometimes you're like, I need people to do stuff for me to help with my campaign, because he's got beef with Hangman. He's still got beef with Mark Briscoe. Let's not lie, that beef's not over. He's gonna get his win back, even though he's had so many wins. And I feel like he needs to get revenge on the Hurt Syndicate. And the only way that can happen is if he's got some people watching his back in order to do that. And I feel different, because the other groups we mentioned, they're quite short term. They didn't really last that long.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, this is played at MJF with a group. I feel like the closest in terms of a meaty group that he was part of was the Hurt Syndicate. And that was also brief as well. I feel like he plays well with other people. Him by himself is like he'll always resort to the low-hanging fruit sometimes. But I always like him when he's around other people, because it forces growth. And he's also a kind of guy that likes to give back as well. As much as, we're going to tirade on his instincts on going long. He must like Triple H going long in certain promos or whatever it is. But this guy will do great with Big Bill. I feel like there's certain wrestlers. Again, I think Brian Keith, but I feel like I want to set him free, be a baby face, have that magical trio with Bandito and Hangman. That's the dream, right? So
I want it so bad. Right? I want my cowboy faction, bro.
That's the only reason why. Yeah, set him free.
I agree, though. Like I did a video years ago now. Like, good Lord, at least 3 years ago, where I talked about how AEW at the time, this was like maybe the beginning of 2022, end of 2021 kind of time, when basically everyone on the roster was affiliated with a faction one way or another. And That is to some people's taste and to others not, but I really liked it at that point because I felt that it gave so many more people opportunities to get on TV. You didn't have to dedicate one segment to one person very often. It meant that you could have a bunch of people on screen, and even if the only contribution that Jamie Hayter made to Team D&D was that she didn't do the DMD thing, that was something that you could keep in mind, that like, oh, there's something going on there. It never led anywhere, of course, because Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker didn't want to work together apparently. But the point I made in that video, specifically with MJF, was that when he was in the Pinnacle at that time, you had like 4 different reasons for MJF to be on TV at any given moment. It was either he was in his feud with Punk and could be just doing general one-to-one babyface heel shit. He could be chastising Wardlow, who was on the shit list at that point. You could be doing that also with Shawn Spears, who is the accountability buddy at the moment. And he was lending out FTR to Andrade's crew to do the AAA tag title thing with the Lucha Brothers, right? So you had so many different reasons to have MJF on screen, talking with people, interacting with people, which is always, like, I say what he does best. It's certainly what he does the most of that he's best at. He talks more than he wrestles, but he's great at both. This is the kind of thing that we might be missing right now, is a little bit of that, where there are a lot of people who are kind of just a one-act thing right now. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can have loners, you can have people, and then on the other side, maybe it's just because every heel under the sun has been just pulled into the gravitational orbit of the Don Callis family. So you've got the one giant faction over there, as opposed to, 12 smaller ones. But point is, I think with somebody like MJF, if we get more people for him to interact with, it just leads to more possible storyline possibilities with him. And I think that is where MJF is at his most effective. I think obviously he's very good at how he talks and the kind of promos that he cuts. But anytime MJF's music hits, I feel like I might be seeing the next chapter in the story. And I don't feel that with everybody, but when MJF does it, I feel like I'm probably going to get at least a good chance that we're going to be seeing something of substance. And if you give him more people to interact with, it just leads to more different ways for storylines to progress. Could be with Big Bill. I think that's fun. I would
Brian
really
Cage.
like
I feel like Brian Cage on the outs with the Don Callis family, based on Twitter exchange between Don Callis and Brian Cage.
We will very much see. But yeah, I'm with you though, bro. I would like to see a few more factions. I'd like to see it. Let's give Big Bill something to do. Let's give MJF something to do. Perhaps I'm missing MJF. I'm gonna be very happy when he eventually makes his return to TV. I think that's a big player that we're sorely missing at the moment. As for the rest of this show, though, there's still loads of matches and things. We obviously won't spend nearly as much time on most of the matches that happened on here. The main event, the world title match, they are the first 2 things, either up here or down there, wherever you're looking at the titles of this YouTube video. But the overall picture that I really want to paint about this show is that, holy shit, the AEW tag division is back.
Smoking hot, bro.
Holy shit. Where has this been? Like, I love the Hurt Syndicate, but this is a completely different division than it was when we got the Hurt Syndicate versus the Sons of Texas at Double or Nothing just a few months ago.
Outrunners, bro.
The Outrunners, any of this nonsense, bro. Like, I don't know what we were doing fiddling about with any of that shit, but oh my God, the tag matches on this show. You could very easily say that, the main event might have been your favorite. Maybe you pick another dark horse here, there, or anywhere. But the tag matches on this show blew me away. You had the first one, Jet Speed and FTR, starting on the pre-show, bleeding over into the main card, which I thought was very creative, very fun, not something they've done before. Having an incredible heated match. FTR doing their absolute best to get some momentum for Jet Speed. Guys who, when they came together, I very much thought this might be just a thrown together team. Maybe maybe Kevin Knight will turn heel on Mike Bailey and go off and join the Hurt Syndicate, at All In or whatever was my pitch. And they've stuck together, and they're now like not even just a team that is, filling out the tag division, but propping it up. These obviously are two amazingly talented guys who are having these matches with the established teams up and down the tag division, blowing you away. And this wasn't a match with like a ton of storyline going into it by any means. They're just, these are the good guys that are standing up for Willow and for Beth Phoenix and all of this. But I could watch these guys wrestle on every show for the next month and wouldn't get tired of it. This was heated. This was incredible. This was athletic. They were talking about which guy was controlling the pace. It was very sports-based. And then they did the finish from Rick Rude versus the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 5, where they're going over the top rope. They're trying for like a suplex or something. And this manager grabs the feet and then holds the feet down as I knock my entire setup. Holds the feet down as the referee counts the 1, 2, 3. Shout out to Bobby Heenan. May he rest in peace. Stokely Hathaway doing a very, very good job on the outside. A little MVP of Team FTR on this show. And that was just the first of 3 excellent tag matches. But what did you think about the show opening this way with such a match?
Woke me up because the funny thing is I actually did stay up to watch the show. But I'm going to confess, I slept during the Hurt Syndicate versus the Demand. That's when I started getting in and out consciousness. So I made it, past this match, Jamie Hayter versus Tekla, and then once Jurassic Express versus the Bucks, watch that. And when it goes to the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand, all of a sudden I was like, it's getting quite dark in here. And I wake up and I was like, wait, what match is this? And I legit. So basically, I caught up with this show this morning, and I even said to my partner, because I made it a big thing, because I was at my mom's and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, I just go home to watch this AEW show. But I was really knackered, so I knew it was a good sign. And I said to my partner, I was like, oh, I need to watch this show. And legit, I was in and out of consciousness. And I remember I got to the main event, and I was like, okay, I closed my eyes, I wake up, and I was like, the TV's off. I was like, oh, what happened to the main event? Like, I feel like it was a great. You know what? The fireworks going off while they were like going back and forth and fighting. That was great. It was great. It's kind of showing like anything can happen. And it's been a while since wrestling has done that, because wrestling sentiment can be so so carefully curated that nothing can be off. Like a little bit of strand of hair can't be out of place. I like my wrestling messy sometimes. Sometimes I don't mind if there's like technical difficulties, because it's realistic. Not everything can be perfect. And I like the AEW, as much as they've been on for like 6 years, sometimes they still have production snafus, or sometimes people miss their cues on how long a match should be. So for me, I loved it. It created a kind of energy that will live throughout the rest of the match. And you're right, this show, the tag team matches were incredible. You had certain tag teams who knew, but bloody hell, Jurassic Express coming back has lit a fire in the tag team division. And one of the people involved in the team was known as being a stinker as a solo wrestler, like Jack Perry, Craven the Hunter. I loved the evolution of his character and his look. The match was great with the Bucks, and even the Bucks themselves are wrestling back to high standards. And I love that they did an interview recently, and I love someone on Twitter goes, so they were basically just phoning it in, because they're saying how, the spark has been relit, and it's kind of like, what is a Freudian slip if you read too much into it, because you could be like, oh, they're enjoying themselves again. No, it's kind of like, if you read between the lines, they're saying, no, we were not giving a shit while we were like, EVPs, but now they're like, the matches are great. The presentation of their broke box, or how many cent they had left bucks was incredible. And then later on, I'm going to talk about Okada and Takeshita and Brodito. That was a phenomenal match as well, especially once time was given to both tag team matches. That's when I feel like it reached the next epic level in terms of the groove. And I also want to give a shout out to Mark Briscoe versus Kyle Fletcher. Up until that point, when that match happened, that was my favorite match. And then the tag team matches happened, but that match was great as well. Mark Briscoe, I don't know, every time you see a Mark Briscoe match, I'm like, man, I love you, Mark Briscoe. Just go on Dynamite. But he just shows out. He's just been doing that. Every time you put Mark Briscoe on a pay-per-view, AEW pay-per-view, he's one of the highlights. And I'm like, him and Kyle Fletcher was an incredible match where Kyle Fletcher had to fucking kill him in order to win a match. And in the women's match as well, the women's matches, I was a huge fan of the story they were trying to tell with Toni Storm and Statlander, Chris Statlander, and the ending. I would love to talk to you about the ending, because the ending did feel kind of weird, and I don't know if it's weird by design, because even how Statlander reacted, because she's trying to get a submission victory, but she couldn't kill Toni by submission. She couldn't get her to say what the North Americans say. She couldn't get her to say uncle, so she had to hit her finisher one more time and win 1, 2, 3, and she's like, because after the match, it's kind of like that she won, and she's kind of like, oh yeah, I won, but not the way I wanted to. So I would love to talk about and break that down. But yeah, in terms of all the matches on the show, and I know a lot of people will complain about Mina losing to Mercedes, but at the same time, I feel like those two matches, those women's matches I mentioned, plays into what Tempest has been pitching. The only way you would care about, you know what, I'm gonna let him talk about it, because I said that.
I love being right, brother. I love being right. I can see where this is going. I got a crystal ball. You're right. I think this show was structured very well. Very good matches. No duds. No bad match on the show as far as I'm concerned. Everybody went out there. Some of them were better than others for sure, but everybody went out there. They felt like they had a bit of a drive. There was a hunger to go out there, particularly in these tag matches. And you go up and down. We'll talk about these women's matches now. I want to touch on some of the bits that we glossed over there as well, particularly the Mark Briscoe, Kyle Fletcher match and everything. But these women's matches, one after another, you get Chris Statlander versus Toni Storm, and then you've got Mina Shirakawa versus Mercedes Moné, right? And it was funny because I woke up and I watched the whole thing today after the fact. And when I do that, I like very much try to stay off the internet while I'm watching, so I not have things spoiled and all that, right? But every so often I might get like a glimpse of something, like not fully focused or anything like that. I'll just get like a picture or something, and I'll be like, I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that. And one of them was just a photo of Mercedes' reaction after the fact when she sat on the apron that she's just won. I thought she was crying. I thought she'd lost just by this picture, because I saw it and immediately like scrolled away, didn't want to look at it. So I spent this whole match thinking that Mina had beaten her. And indeed, that did not happen, because the sequence of events on this show were that Chris Statlander and Toni Storm wrestled for the women's title. I thought they had a good match. I thought that by the time you got to the finish, I could tell the kind of story that they were telling. And this was one of the two matches I was most looking forward to going into the show from a narrative perspective. It was this and the main event. I really was looking forward to seeing what the next chapter of Toni Storm's arc was going to be. Generally speaking, I still think we got that, and I'm happy because we'll see how it plays out. But I feel like I'm starting the first couple lines of putting this one in the win column for Tempest being right. I don't get them very often these days because I can't predict shit in wrestling. But if this is one that I am going to be able to do, I'm pretty happy with it. Because Toni was very frustrated, felt very unconfident through the early portions of the match, wasn't able to really get momentum going. You could tell that she was like just exasperated. She was just kind of like, just frustrated. And a lot of that comes out with Chris Statlander countering the Storm Zero at one point, posting up, doing a headstand basically to avoid taking the move. To stop, Toni's finish. She was unhappy with that. Eventually did hit it a second time, but still wasn't satisfied with it all. Eventually, Chris Statlander locks her in a submission hold, and Toni's fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and she says, just fucking kill me! Just kill me! At which point, Chris Statlander hits Saturday Night Fever, gets the win. I thought as a match, it was a little disappointing from what I was hoping it would be. I think that they were saving a lot for a potential next match down the line. It's always tricky when you're doing a match that is, presented as like, for the first time ever, they've been in the company for like at least 3 years. Statlander's been here the entire time and they've never crossed paths. And now their first meeting, and it's good. It's not the blow away 5-star classic that you would hope, one day we're going to get to see these two together. I would be shocked if they did not have that match some point in the next year, because this very much feels like the beginning of Toni. I was about to say Toni's like craziness arc or something like that. That's kind of been her last 2.5 years, really. But the next chapter of it anyway, a new kind of madness, because she loses this match. She gets beat after being very much not head in the game about it. And then as Chris Statlander is celebrating, out comes Mercedes Moné for her open challenge, with the frat house in tow, carrying all of her belts.
I loved it.
Which was fun. It's like the entrance that she did at All Out with all the dudes with her belts, but now they were like dudes that we recognized.
Yeah, uncouth, very uncouth guys. So it was quite cheap. Comparison.
It felt like, oh, we didn't think of an entrance. Oh, you guys are here. You had a match earlier. Go on, out you pop. But she goes down, interrupts Chris Statlander, tells Chris Statlander to get out of the ring, and this is her show and everything. And Chris Statlander goes like, okay. She leaves. And if she just left, I would be like, oh, you kind of really didn't step up to the occasion here on this challenge. But that's fine. I thought for a second that maybe that would just be the match, that Chris Statlander would wrestle, because the gimmick of this was that Mercedes Moné was going to put her TBS title on the line against another champion who would also be putting their belt.
Would you like
right?
that? Or would you think that would be like stupid baby face? You know, them ones are like, there's an excuse for her to lose because she just had a grueling match.
Yeah, it depends. It would all depend on like who would win. Because if Chris Statlander did that and then immediately lost, having only won the title a month ago, I'd be like, that's not a smart decision. But if this is her way to hand, Mercedes her first loss, I'd be like, that's how you really put over Chris Statlander. You want to put her over strong? Have her beat both sides of the All-In women's main event on the same show, one after another. Make her the new Jericho of beating Rock and Austin the same night.
Same night, yeah.
Talk about that shit for 20 years afterwards. I will not accept any other comparisons between Chris Statlander and Chris Jericho. Maybe that and their first names, spelled differently, though. This then led to Mercedes and Mina Shirakawa putting up the ROH Interim Women's World Television Championship, which they simply need to remove a few words from, because these announcers just could not get the name of this title to roll off the tongue at any point. It's too wordy. It's an interim title, so they also had to explain that there is another champion and all that. So I'm sure at some point Red Velvet will come back and we'll have Red Velvet against Mercedes, and Mercedes can win the actual belt. And
that's my dream match. That's my dream match, by the way.
Absolutely. I think that would be a really, really solid match. But this as well was also a very solid match. These two, I think, worked really well together. I was maybe a little more invested because I thought we were going to get a title change based off of a not spoiler, I guess, that I had seen. And I really like Mina Shirakawa's work just in general. Like, I know that's not necessarily a hot take, but, I was writing list entries about her having this incredible babyface underdog story in Stardom, 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. And Stardom never capitalized on that, because she cut the promo of the year backstage about how she can't live up to her own expectations, but she's just going to keep trying. And she's doing it with a busted lip and maybe a missing tooth or something, and just an incredible promo. And then no one heard from Mina Shirakawa in a major spot again in Stardom for a while. So I'd very much like for her to be kind of in the upper echelon of the AEW women's division, not someone who can just kind of stroll in, stroll out, where her allegiances lie and everything. Mm-hmm. But by the end of this show, I felt a bit more confidently in that, because they did some really great near falls. The crowd was kind of in and out for the two women's matches, one after another. This was one of the lower points, which maybe doesn't look the best on the crowd, but in terms of what else was happening on the show, I can't really blame them if they get tired during a really long pay-per-view. It's just a shame that of the matches, it was going to be these ones. But again, this did follow a couple great tag matches and the craziness of the Hurt Syndicate and their tornado tag and all the plunder and everything that was there, and a great Kyle Fletcher match. However, this then went, and Mina ends up getting beat. Mercedes manages to put her feet on the ropes and get the pin and look very happy about doing it, getting another belt to add to her collection. And she stands there, and then Chris Statlander comes out, repays the favor, and kind of runs her off. This then leads to backstage segments later in the show, where we've got Mercedes Moné challenging Chris Statlander to a match at Full Gear for the women's title. which I am super looking forward to. Let me tell you that much. We were talking about potential next challengers for Chris Statlander on the most recent edition of our Dynamite Review podcast, available for members here on Wrestle Purists. And I said, hey, it'd be really nice if we could tie up the Chris Statlander Mercedes Moné rivalry from last year in a nice little bow with another match, and maybe Chris can get her win back. Looks like that might be what we're doing next. And maybe that can start to tell a bit of a story that regardless of all of these belts, Mercedes can not win that one. And I think that's a good story to tell for her. Maybe you can have the confidence, play a factor into that going forward. Maybe she loses some belts, whatever. I'm sure we'll talk about it as the days and weeks and months roll on. But that's a great match. But then, Sat.
Yes.
Mina Shirakawa comes to comfort Toni Storm backstage. Toni Storm, who just looks completely despondent, glazed over face, just staring off into the distance. And she says, we lost everything. We've lost everything. And Mina's crying. And she says, we haven't lost each other. And they embrace. And they're absolutely winning these fucking tag belts. And I'm so excited about it. But they embrace, and Mina is crying. But Toni's expression does not change. I think there is so much that you can read into this little backstage interaction between these two. One of my favorite bits of the entire show. And I'm really in a Toni Storm kind of mindset because I've been looking at her run a lot as of late. To see this and be like, I'm still interested in where we're going with this character. I've not lost any interest from her big wins, from coming out of a very emotional story with Mariah May earlier this year. Big matches through the summer. Felt like we were maybe about to take a foot off the gas going into the 4-way All Out, but now we're getting a completely new direction for this character, it seems, where she is now going to have to fill the void of not having this title. I think she's going to try and fill this void with a partnership with Mina Shirakawa and potentially being the first AEW Women's Tag Team Champions. And I would love for both those titles and the partnership with Mina to just not be the same, to not be the thing that's going to bring Timeless Toni Storm fulfillment, that it has to be that title. And then she has to reckon with that. She has to decide whether she wants to continue on this partnership or whether Toni Storm might want to try and enter the Owen Hart Cup next year, possibly try and get her belt back at Wembley Stadium. I think by then, if that is the story, I don't know what's going to happen between now and then in terms of the women's title and everything, but if in one way or another, Toni Storm is challenging for the women's title at Wembley Stadium next year, or in a big show between now and then against Chris Statlander or someone else of equal caliber, I am locked in, because that is going to be one of the most important character moments of her run as Timeless Toni Storm.
I could see her temporarily being happy being tag champions, and no one's out of mind, out of sight. If the title was away from her, maybe she'll be happy. Maybe right around the Owen time, that's when she's like, "Oh, I want to be champion again." If it was okay with you, Mina, I want to go to do this thing. It's been fun, but I need to get my first love back. I love you, but I love this more.
Yeah. I love this more, and the feeling that will go along with that. Mina probably will be quite heartbroken by that. Maybe if Toni wins the belt back at some point in the next year, we can get the like every year these two wrestle one another and it's their relationship furthers in the time in between. I'd really like to see all of that. I know there are people that are like, they're ready to just see someone else be women's champion for a bit. I think that's what this period is going to be. I think if they win these tag titles, I think it's very important to that story that Toni will want to try and make that work. She's looking for what's going to fulfill her. You know, she wants it to be that, but for it to just not be that, despite her best efforts, I think it's going to be a really interesting narrative crux. I'm all in on this story.
I also want to give a shout out to Toni and Chris's entrances. They had both
Mm.
unique entrances, little intros. And the funny thing is, Tony did her own one, right? And when it came to Chris's one, I was like, is Tony doing the VO for
I
it? And
had the same thought.
I was like, it's another bloody crazy Aussie, but a name of Harley Cameron. Fucking Harley Cameron. But she tricked me there. And she was from the galaxy, blah, blah, blah. Chris Statlander. I was like, okay, there's only one person with that vocal inflection. You know, in the end, I was like, wait. I was like, wait. There's another Aussie. I was like, wait. And I loved it because it was, for me, it's quite it's quite hilarious how Chris Statlander became an alien again right around the time she become world champion, because you could argue, because you come from timeless Tony Storm, who's such a larger than life character, she couldn't be girl next door named Chris, Big Daddy Chris, Stat Daddy, whatever you want to call her, with all those nicknames. She's known for being very, very strong, very quirky. She needed something to hone in, to harness that charisma that she has, that odd beat charisma, that nerdiness that she has. And like you said, it is the alien character, but it's much more refined. It is an amalgamation of her journey, of everything she's been through. Even that video, I feel like there was a lot of things on WrestleDream that kind of like gave us like a green light on our theory of what we've been saying the last few weeks and months. So when I saw like the video package for Chris talking about her journey in AEW and all the things that she's been through, I love how they gloss over the hill run, and it makes sense.
We forget about Stokely in this heel run. That never happened.
I feel like Harley is more like Harley's, because it's Harley's skewed point of view, and I love it because Harley looks up to like Chris. So she's talking about this glowing thing about Chris Statlander, a woman of morals who fights this and that. I was like, well, she didn't have morals last year, but sure, go ahead, Harley Cameron. It's weirdly enough, the two people for this tag tournament that should team together are not going to, because I feel like Harley Cameron and Mina Shirakawa as a tag team would be a hoot, but fair enough, because they both have the same kind of vibe. They'll team up with anyone. Say they get along with everyone. Everyone loves, Mina, and everyone loves Harley to a degree, except for Mercedes. They would have been a good team, but I get it. They're like the sidekick to the main characters, which is like Tony and Chris Statlander. But I like Statlander's entrance. She's like from the Drum of the Galaxy, had her manservants take off her cool outfits and stuff like that. And I like it. The song is still bumper music. I like when it gets to the sweeping, her old theme, the sweeping part of the chorus is the part before that. Dun, 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 dun. I'm like, oh, it's an advert. Are you pitching that? Can you show a t-shirt that you're selling? And then it gets to the sweeping orchestral part, which I like, is very much Flash, was it Flash Gordon-esque?
Yeah,
but I'm not a fan. I'm like, this ain't doesn't sound like Mikey Ruckus, because Mikey Ruckus likes to shred guitars. I'm like, Mike, what happened? Did someone tell you tone down on your Mikey Ruckusness? It's missing that. The song is fine, but Betrayals for me was one of the best themes, both versions, the rockier versions. And so I was like, I get it. They want to move away because she's not a betrayer anymore. They want to move away from that. But they could have done something where it's more epic. The song is fine, but it feels like it's too polite. I needed to step on, put your foot on the gas. I want the hairs on my arm. Like the orchestral part is cool, but then it gets to the other part, and I'm like, okay. All right, guys. Here we go again. Yeah. Yes. All right. Yeah, but the match was fine. It never got to the next gear. Got to like the first gear. It was kind of hinting to go to second gear, and then the match kind of ended like the way it ended. Like I said, it was a bit awkward at times, but I think it was awkward by design because Tony would not tap out. It was almost like a shoot. The way she wouldn't tap out is what we wanted from Mox.
Yeah.
How was she struggle? Because she was struggling. It was awkward. You rarely get that. You're like talking. You really is someone actually grunt through a submission trying to break out of it. Usually they do the whole wailing thing, they're wearing the feet and armor part. But this, you can see her just grinding her neck, trying to crook. And I'm like, and then that also kind of put her over as well. It's kind of like Tony did not lose quite easily. And like, Chris had to just go through her finisher in order to put her out of her misery. So I, like you say, this is part one of a overarching story that we may see down the line. And then the Mina match for me is one of the the better performances I've seen Mina Shirakawa in quite a while. She was given a chance to actually show out, and the thing that makes me laugh about you thinking of what the match result was going to be is that's how the match was going. Mina was kicking out for a lot of things, so I don't blame you. So you must have been thinking, man, go on, Mina, put your hand on the rope, kick out this move, don't tap out. What the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, that about sums it up.
What the fuck just happened? CEO. No, what's going on? Is this a dusty finish? CEO. No, what's going on? Chris is coming now. She gonna talk to the referee. Or she'll do a Hulk Hogan. She just gonna win the title for herself.
None of the above, turns out. But fun matches both times. I like the Mina match more than I like the Tony match, which maybe would have surprised me going in, but we'll see.
But I do want to say something quickly. So Mina Shirakawa is an example of what Maki Ito should have done.
Oh, great shout.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because Mina could have been a meme wrestler. You know what I'm saying? Because Mina, that's her shtick. This is what I like about Mina. She'll do her shtick only early on. Once the fight is getting down to it, she's serious. She's a serious grabs business in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Because she comes from Stardom. Maki Ito was trying to be a serious wrestler. Then she got over in America. Then she went too far into being a meme. And then she's just like a GCW slop wrestler because nobody cares. Now she's like a free agent. I don't hear Tony clamoring to hire her now, you know. So she leaned in a bit too much. I like her character, but she doesn't have the same buzz she had years ago. So shout out to Mina for knowing when to turn it on when it needs to be done.
Yeah. 100%. I have loads of praise to heap onto Mina Shirakawa. Very, very, very big fan.
She started wrestling late as well. So shout out to her. She's a late bloomer.
Yeah, she started wrestling at like 31, I want to say, which is shocking because if you told me that she was 31 now, I'd be like, wow, I would have guessed younger, you know.
Same.
You know, fucking good for her. Just picking it up as well as she has to be able to be at where the point that she is. Again, starting wrestling late is not easy by any means, but thumbs up for Mina Shirakawa wholeheartedly.
Especially Joshi's. This is usually retirement age.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at like All Japan Women's in the 80s, you were not allowed to wrestle past the age of 28. You were deemed too old at 28.
Sexism, man. Sexism.
Man, that promoter's not seeing heaven, let me tell you. Let me tell you. Elsewhere on this show, however, because we have jumped around a little bit, as is the case, we talk about what we want to talk about. And basically we talk about the most, topical things. There wasn't really anything to discuss on like the pre-show or none of that outside of the jet speed match, which then bled into the main card. But Pac fixed his gear. That's good. Love that. He didn't have his weird singlet thing he did on Dynamite in his match with Orange Cassidy. Thumbs up for that. Megan Bain and Penelope Ford were dressed as Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn because I think DC is promoting an AEW show soon. That was the only note I took from that, and people really love Willow Nightingale. So yeah, more good stuff on the pre-show. People, generally speaking, were into it. But the rest of this main card, I'm looking at the things that we still have to talk about, and it's like almost just all hits. All big matches that are still awesome and really exciting, and I've been really looking forward to talk about because holy smokes. And this is what I want out of your AEW pay-per-views. I'd love a little bit more of that, of the emotional sauce put into it going in to really make me excited for pay-per-view day. But if this is the quality of pay-per-view that I'm going to get from AEW, I think this is the best pay-per-view top to bottom they've had probably since Double or Nothing, possibly even before then. Like, this was one of their best shows of the year, I thought. I thought this was better than the previous two pay-per-views, which is really annoying because I was at both of them. I would have really loved one of those shows to really break through, but this was just a spectacular card, man. We talked a little bit about Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe. I'm really interested to get your thoughts on this match because I thought this was a really solid match. These two always wrestle really well together. This is their fifth match together. Their match at Double or Nothing earlier this year was fantastic. Their match in the Continental Classic last year was one of my favorites of the whole tournament. They keep wrestling together. They can keep wrestling together. However, the one takeaway that I really had, well, there were a couple of them actually. Two of the takeaways I had from this match, one of which was I think Kyle Fletcher understands the little things of what to do in wrestling better than just about anybody of his age bracket. Like perhaps like MJF, you would also say very much falls into that same category. But for someone who's still like on the come up that hasn't broken through into that main event scene quite yet, Kyle Fletcher, I see do so many things where I'm just like, oh, you are just so wise beyond your years, sir. You know exactly what to do. His selling, his heelish tendencies. A lot of people got on him a few weeks ago in his match with Commander on Collision, where he kind of lent into the people cheering for him a little bit. And I don't know if that was something that was relayed to him at all, but I have seen absolutely none of that since. This guy has gotten so much of a reaction out of doing such simple things like taking Mark Briscoe's chair out of the ring so he doesn't do his little step-up dive thing. He does that and just kind of jaw jacks with the crowd. Easy heel heat. Incredible stuff. Very simple. His facial reactions when Mark Briscoe started kicking out of the big moves at the end, when Mark Briscoe kicked out of the brainbuster, oh my God, the selling on Kyle Fletcher's face. Selling all of this, selling Mark Briscoe as a potential threat to win this title, I thought was fantastic. His just general selling when he took a bump to the floor and he just starts like touching all of his fingers together with his thumb and all that. It was when he hit the J driller on the apron. You know, he's really selling his neck in a way that, yeah, you might think is pretty cliche, but cliche when done at the highest possible level is still incredibly effective. Love this performance from Kyle Fletcher. Love this performance from Mark Briscoe as well. My only other takeaway that I wanted to bring to this, and we could possibly discuss, is it does kind of feel like the MJF program and the win over MJF at All Out hasn't really paid dividends for Mark Briscoe in terms of where he's positioned on the card internally within the roster, all of this. And this is what I was hoping for through the entire summer when it looked like, you know, MJF and Mark Briscoe's program was going to be the big thing for MJF, you know, as he was challenging for the world title and everything. He's just back losing TNT title matches on pay-per-view. And they're really good ones, don't get me wrong, but like hasn't seen the upward trajectory really change very much. That to me makes it feel like, you know, this was I don't want to say a waste of time because it was good program, right? But like it feels a little inconsequential now that they can go back. And this is a match that we saw at Dynasty with the same result. You know, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe wrestled at a pay-per-view in May, and it was probably about the same level of quality. It was probably about the same kind of performance from both, and we got the same results. So that means that the stuff in the middle to me didn't carry that much weight. You know, it might still continue going forward if this MJF Mark Briscoe thing doesn't end up being over, but maybe it is. And I don't know. And I just want to see more out of Mark Briscoe, not like more from him, like his performance needs more, but I want more given to him and be able to prove that he can be something of a main event guy in whatever form that takes.
Okay. This is what I blame is the duality of man or duality of a character. So Mark Briscoe is a sadistic savage stuck in a jovial Southern man's body. So the reason why I'm using that as an example, because we saw an example of him becoming a feral beast against MJF, and that was something that people leaned into, right? And I'm gonna use someone's example, and it's gonna be left field, and you're like, what? It's a bit like Ron Killings and R-Truth. He had the same issue. As much as you want Ron Killings to be the vibe, who were the crowd chanting for? R-Truth. Who were they vibing with at the end of the day? Oh, shucks, skipping my hill, I'm a bit confused. R-Truth. He cut his hair on live TV, you know, he was being serious. He's gonna have a program with Aleister Black. As much as I would have enjoyed serious R-Truth, most of these kids were conditioned for jovial, happy R-Truth. Hence why they pivot back to that very quickly. I've used that example because what has gotten Mark Briscoe on TV, what made Warner Brothers Discovery chill on Briscoe's being persona non grata, is the fact that Mark Briscoe is quite an intelligent, quirky, jovial individual, and is led to him having a comrade known as a conglomeration. As much as I like the conglomeration, is actually an albatross around everyone's neck in that group. As much as they debut that cool Friends-esque music video and Titletron and all that kind of stuff, it is a reason why everyone's held back. It's holding them back. If you think about it, let's be realistic. Why isn't Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong breaking people's back and kicking people's head in? They stuck doing goofy backstage promos that doesn't suit anyone. And the funny things about Kyle O'Reilly, the thing I love about his personality is also a hindrance. And I feel like Ibu said it, where he's got like substitute teacher energy with his sense of humor. I think it was Ibu who said that. I was like, that's quite accurate. He has that quirky, hey guys, I'm here to cover for a week. I'm going to be a bit sassy and jokey, but I'm not your teacher, so I'm not going to make you do your homework. That's what's been kind of his humor. And sometimes it can be a detriment. It has been a detriment since, and I love it because even Nigel McGuinness said it, like, oh, it's when he's no, it wasn't Nigel McGuinness. Sorry, it was his rival. Danielson brought it up when he's a bit serious. That's, when he turns it up a notch, because him being goofy in that group, you can even argue that's why Roddy's a bit angry. It's like, we should be breaking people's back and necks, and people want him to feud. No, I'm hoping that this whole dissension with Roddy being in that group is meant to make Kyle realize I'm not getting anywhere since Adam's gone. I want it to be a case of they grieving the loss of Adam Cole. So Kyle's thing was like, I'm going to go back to this group because this is my happy place. I don't have to think. I don't have to be serious. I can just pretend hanging out with Big Tom, who's here for another few weeks before he leaves again. While Roddy's like, we should be the Paragon. We should be tag team champions. And the same thing with Mark Briscoe. Wins a great match with, MJF. What does he do? Conglomeration business. We got to do this and the hawking and the fighting. The word of the day is perseverance and all that kind of stuff. You're like, no, dude, you won a match where you mentioned your brother. It was that he was fighting for his brother. You can't be like, well, I won for my brother and I'm going to go back to conglomeration business. No, we need to see a consequence. You're right. If you were in a coma and you woke up and you're like, do you know that Mark Briscoe beat MJF? You'd be like, what the fuck you on about? When did this happen? Because he's not moving up the card. And it's the same issue that happened with Orange Cassidy. He had his whole feud with Moxley. And then if someone went to, he had a great match with Moxley, main evented in AEW pay-per-view. Orange Cassidy main event a main event show? Really? Why is he still stuck on the same level? Why is he still feuding?
He's done it a couple times now.
Exactly. It's because conglomeration is like a happy. That's the trios title of a group. That's like a placeholder. Willow doesn't have anything to do. Let's just put her on conglomeration. We don't have anything. You know what? We're not gonna end the reign of hologram. We're not gonna end his undefeated streak. He's Tatanka-like undefeated streak. So he's not Goldberg. He's Tatanka-like undefeated streak. We're not gonna end it. We just put him in a conglomeration. Doesn't make sense for this masked guy to be there. Sure, let's just put him in there. Tomohiro Ishii is the only one that I feel like benefits being in that group because he always loses. So I can't say you should do more. Even though I do, he's a guy in his mid-40s, or probably he's in 49 or 50. It's kind of like, what else can you do with a guy? That looks funny. Big Tom, he's coming to visit. But everyone else with such potential, they're being wasted away in a nothing group. It's a nothing group. It is a job squad, but they're not jobbing as much. It just doesn't really serve anyone in that group. You get a few ha-has, but how many titles you getting in that ha-has? How many titles has conglomeration won since they formed together? Huh?
Good question. Good question.
Yes, that's the issue.
Tomohiro Ishii is turning 50 years old in 2 months. By the end of this year, he'll be a 50-year-old man, and still he'll be the best 50-year-old wrestler wrestling on planet Earth,
next to Shelton Benjamin.
That's a pretty good shout. Let's put them in a match together. Let's have it be a G1 climax match from like 2012 or whatever it was. Hell yeah. I feel you, man. I think you make a lot of really, really good points. Saying the conglomeration of the trios titles and as a group, I think that is absolutely the most cutting thing that I've heard in a very long time with regards to discussion about AEW. That is so, and you might think, because like I really made the pitch for, increased factions and having more interactions with various people, but it doesn't feel like that's the case with these guys. Like, I don't know what Kyle O'Reilly's relationship is with Orange Cassidy versus Mark Briscoe versus Tomohiro Ishii versus Hologram versus they're all just the same. They're all the same character. They all might have a slightly different quirk with regards to their backstage interaction, in that Mark Briscoe's the crazy Southerner. Orange Cassidy doesn't give a shit. Kyle O'Reilly's your substitute teacher. Roderick Strong's angry. Ishii doesn't talk. And fucking Willow is super positive. But Willow's, I separate her because she is a more well-rounded character in terms of like, she has fucking goals and things she wants to do. Whereas the rest of them, it does just kind of feel like a conglomeration of fucking people that don't really matter that much, unfortunately.
It undercut one more thing I want to add.
I had nothing to add. Go off.
It undercut Orange Cassidy losing his friends. Because remember, the whole thing was, I have no friends. Oh wait, no, I got these guys now. Legit, that the whole point. It undercut the heel turn from fucking Trent Beretta. The whole point was like, everyone's gone. Everyone's gone their separate ways. Some people turn heel. You're the reason why. I love how Trent was trying to say he was the reason why he didn't have any friends, and it was getting to him. And when the conglomeration started, you can't pretend that's still the story you're having, because look how easy you made new friends, and you're so trusting as well. You'd think you'd have PTSD from being in a friendship faction after last time. So there's a reason. I feel like you're right, because I feel like you're alluding to the fact that it makes people want to know. It's like a flanderization of everyone's basic quirks. What is that thing that you're known for? This is a WWE faction within a group. You're gonna flanderize you into one word or one quirk. I'm shocked Mina's not in the group. Jet Speed should be in that group, because he said they're adjacent people. I think it's Jet Speed are adjacent, because that's what happens if you got a quirk. Go to conglomerations and we have a little bit of a haha.
It's really interesting, man. Like, it's probably a fool's errand to like put a lot of time into thinking about what the storyline purpose of the conglomeration is or could be. But you just saying that about Orange Cassidy and everything makes me go like, well, why couldn't this group be that narratively? Why couldn't this be everyone involved's second choice? Mark lost his brother. Orange Cassidy had all his friends turn on him. Kyle O'Reilly has always had a very difficult relationship with Adam Cole and Roderick Strong, and that could be at whatever stage that is. Why can't Ishii is not currently in chaos, and chaos exists, but it is kind of fallen apart. Why can't that be the point? Why can't we have finally someone say that out loud and go like, maybe it could be Mark Briscoe after winning this MJF match, go and be like, listen, guys, I really appreciate you all. Like, I had no ill will or anything, but maybe I was trying to fill a void here, and maybe I need to go off and be on my own so I can process this feud that has been very personal, but also grow. I don't feel like I'm growing as part of this. Maybe I do need to leave, and they can, I'm sure it is just the gathering of the most wholesome people, generally speaking, your good baby faces. They would understand that. And maybe that could lead Orange Cassidy to feeling the same way, processing how he feels, which he doesn't typically do. Maybe you have Kyle O'Reilly do the same. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I like the idea that the Island of Misfit Toys faction at some point kind of gets self-aware about the fact that none of them want to be in this faction. They've all just kind of ended up there because
everyone's been betrayed in that group.
Yeah. Everyone's just gotten there out of circumstances. I think there's something there to play with, but who knows if they ever will. Run through a few more of these matches fairly quickly, because we don't need to be here all night by any means.
No.
But we've still got a couple of real bangers to talk about, just so it's not the last thing that gets left here, because it's probably the only thing on the show that I didn't have too much of a feeling about. Jamie Hayter beat Tekla on this show. I thought that was very interesting, a curious result.
Really?
Not one I'm particularly upset by, considering like I want Jamie Hayter to move up, and I would like at some point for Jamie Hayter to be able to challenge for the women's title one-on-one and tell the story of her getting her title back or trying to, and all of those things. But if we've got blood and guts in like 3 weeks, I find it interesting that they just beat the leader of the heel team clean on pay-per-view. You know, like,
I know what you mean, but I in my head, I hope the heel team wins. Yeah, because
could be,
get that, because at the end of the day, I feel like Jamie Hayter should be one of those wrestlers that shouldn't really lose that much. And I do feel like her story is gone when if Tony's not champion, there's no point in that story. And what annoyed me as well was you had Excalibur mentioning they lost the title to Tony Storm. She beat Tony Storm for the title. Then she lost to Tony Storm. Like, my storyline, I've been telling people for ages. It should be they're both from different decades. I feel like Jamie's coping with losing, but doing the same thing she's doing. They both went through identity crisis, and no one's talking about it. Do you know how annoying it is? They should be career rivals. If I was writing, I'd be like, Tony and Jamie should be fight forever. It should be them two, but it got lost.
I don't know how we haven't gotten this fucking match. I don't know how we got Jamie Hayter returning over a year ago, and we've had like next to no interaction between her and Tony Storm.
It's what we've been talking about with Eddie Kingston. They have a habit of bringing back wrestlers and not doing that follow-up. He's like, guys, do that thing. What thing? He's back. No. Yeah, they're back. That's the whole issue. Can you not address the crowd? I know. Maybe it's like, is it a WWE thing? Like, is it a condition? Like, opening top of the hour of the show or whatever, we're gonna have so and so come out, cut a 20-minute promo long, and then get interrupted by a Judgment Day-esque, stinger, and they turn around like, what the fuck's going on? I don't know, but it would be good to be like, character motivations are important. Without it, it seemed like Jamie was wandering aimlessly until the elephant in the room was addressed. That she did lose the title. It was Tony Storm, and it was only mentioned briefly before the Fatal 4-Way. Hence, was like, "Do you want to fight me? Or we're going to team up? Do you want to fight me? Come on, it was going to happen." And I liked it. It's like they were still like that little bit of animosity between them, but it's like it happened to Thunder Rosa as well. Like the amount of people you're like, I can't wait for so and so to come back. Oh, they came back. They're on Collision.
They actually are back and have been for 3 weeks over here on Collision or Rampage or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I feel you, man. Like, I agree. I don't know what the storyline direction for Jamie in terms of the world title would be if Tony's not the champion, because again, it does not need to be done just the way that I fantasy book things for me to be satisfied with it. But I would love there to be a moment where Jamie Hayter, I thought it was going to happen at All Out. I thought All Out was going to be not necessarily Jamie winning the title, but I thought that was going to be the next step, the next chapter in her story. Turns out it was going to be the next chapter in Chris's. But I thought we were going to get some sort of moment where Jamie Hayter can just like maybe turn heel, maybe just have a fit of rage against Tony Storm and be like, I don't care that you lost your mind. I don't care that these people love you for it. You took my life from me and now I want it back. You must be feeling that deep down somewhere.
Right?
You simply must. We've never addressed it. You were women's champion when you got hurt. And out for over a year. I don't know, man.
When Queen Aminata came out, was there a part of you that was getting worried that she might turn on Jamie?
For like a second, just because there were people next to each other. And I was like, well, she could completely change her presentation, but Queen Aminata does not scream like spooky to me. Like, I don't think she would align herself with the triangle of madness, make a square of madness.
Listen,
but
I could see them going like, hey, do you have voodoo? Where you're from?
No.
They can make a voodoo queen like Roxy or something. Shout out to Roxy and TNA. So the reason why I mentioned that, because I was getting worried for a second there. I was like, is she angry that, because it could be part of her saying that should be my match, even though she won. I don't know, but I'm happy it didn't. I feel like Queen Aminata coming out help establish that the brackets for the women's tag title is going to be announced. And I do 100% now think that Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter are going to be a tag team. And if it was up to me, I'll call it Sat's consolation prize. This women's title match is not going to happen now. But if in the final, haha, or even semi-finals, it might be semi-finals because the final needs to be a heel team, whatever. But I do want Mina and Tony versus Queen Amanata and Jamie Hayter, so we can get that little shit sorted out, you know.
Yeah.
So
at least give a tease of something that can still come later. Because, like, again, if I have my way, if I'm telling this Tony Storm story, I think there's a decent chance that at some point this mania within her might have her turn heel again out of an obsession for this thing. And if she's the heel, then maybe JB can have this justification for being upset and everything and have her be the babyface coming out of it. Maybe that'll mean that Jamie will have a better shot at walking away with the title at some point, even if it is like 2 years on from her return at that point and 3 years on from her injury, but we will see. Elsewhere on this show, we have the second 2/3 of our trilogy of tag team excellence still to talk about, in that we had Jurassic Express defeating the Young Bucks to win 500 grand in a match that, it warmed my heart. As someone who thinks that the Jurassic Express Young Bucks match from All Out 2020 is a very underrated match, lost in the shuffle of an otherwise not very good pay-per-view as far as AEW goes. This one, oh man, Jack Perry looks so happy to just be able to be wrestling, to have people doing his little dance again. Like, I can imagine there might be some bit of him that is like, oh, I've regressed as a character. Maybe he can think that way, you know, and maybe in a context it's true. But I still see so much of what Jack Perry has been over the last year or two still within Jungle Jack Perry.
Me too.
It's like, because the first time that they came out for their squash match a couple weeks ago, I was like, boy, it could be 2020 right now. Like, we've just snapped it back. Here he is. He might start doing the snare trap again, the whole deal, right? And yeah, it is that, but he's still in there. Maybe it's the beard. I don't know.
It's the beard. It's the beard, and he still does the pose, but he doesn't more like he is. He's more like blessing the cloud. But I can feel he's almost a stretch out wide. I like Scapegoat as a character. It just didn't translate well in the ring. I feel like it finally, because you and I were talking about. I feel like you and I in the office were talking about, because we didn't do the AEW show together when Scapegoat was happening. I don't think we were anyway. We were doing when he was part of the Elite, but part of the Elite is when Scapegoat came back. So maybe we were. But anyway, the issue with Jungle Boy in the end was he did not know how to convey the message of who Jungle Boy was. As Scapegoat, all of a sudden, a few weeks in Japan, you're not known for your promos. You know, even though you know, Will Ospreay has said it, those backstage promos what helped to become a better promo. And Kenta had the best post-match promos ever, guys. I used to screenshot every of his one-liners when his book was out, and there's a whole bit with him and the cameraman. Anyway, there's another time. Anyway, so he goes for a few months hanging out House of Torture, comes back and becomes a comfortable talker. How the fuck did that happen? And all of us, even when he cuts his promo now, he still wax philosophical, but I like the fact that he's got the Craven the Hunter look. Is an upgrade. It's kind of like what would happen if you lived in the jungle for too long and you're kind of feral. You turn into Craven the Hunter. He went from being Tarzan to Craven, and I like that the upgrade in the character, the name, and everything like that. It is kind of like you get. It's a mixture of Scapegoat and Jungle Boy, and that's what you get with the Craven and the Hunter look. Look at that. It's SP3. Shout out to this guy. Shout out to this guy.
Shout out to SP3 himself. We love you, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing love.
Yeah. So I like the fact that his character has evolved, because that's what he brings to the table, because it is different. It's kind of like what is different about Jurassic Express? Well, they don't need Christian Cage anymore, because Jungle Boy is a good talker, and he's now a comfortable talker, and he can convey a message of a feud like he done. He did it in 30 seconds, 40 seconds. I was very impressed, because I felt like he needed a whole video package or whatever to detail this is why I'm a babyface again, and he did it very naturally. And then the match they had, oh my gosh, I felt like once they got given time, because it could be one of those matches where like it started off good, if you give it like another 15 minutes, it would be a classic or whatever it was. But they were given time because the Young Bucks match, they're kind of like, it's now closed in our contract. If we have a match, Gosh darn it, we're gonna go past the 15-minute mark. It was incredible. The counters that were in the match was breathtaking. And it also, I like the fact that even though it wasn't shown before this match, it does seem like Jungle Jack Perry wants to take the Bucks out of the darkness himself as well. Because when they want, but I don't want to spoil it because you are the one that's breaking it down. We'll get to the end. I'm gonna let the world know how it went.
Well, this again was this was the second of 3 fantastic tag team matches on this show. I love this match. I've always loved Jurassic Express as a tag team, like one of the most underrated tag teams to me in AEW in general. And they're back now, and it immediately takes AEW from being like, you know, if you're looking at the hierarchy of it all, you had the Hurt Syndicate over there who just lost the titles, Brodito, who could break up at any time because they're a thrown together tag team and are great, having a very good run, but how much staying power they will have will completely depend on what you do with them. You've got FTR and the Young Bucks who are always there. And then you've got Jet Speed, who again was kind of the same way, like a little thrown together, might just be for a sake of a feud for All In for the Hurt Syndicate, and then who knows what'll happen. But just keeping them together and adding Jurassic Express back to this is like, well, now there's like 6, 7, 8 tag teams that are real established teams. All of a sudden, this is starting to look a lot more like the AEW of old when tag team wrestling was kind of one of their calling cards. And I love that. This match was really, really good. There was a lot of fun moments kind of throughout. They made a real point of saying that this was the same building that the Young Bucks beat Jurassic Express for the tag titles in the ladder match in 2022. It was a really good little callback. And also, I don't know if this means anything to all of that, but when you consider who the Young Bucks had lost the tag team titles to previous to that and who Jurassic Express beat for the tag team titles, the Lucha Brothers, the Young Bucks also hit the fear factor in this match, you know, so it was really just giving that kind of 2021, 2022 kind of era as a tag team match in 2025. So a real nice kind of callback feeling to the whole thing. It was really, really fun. Jack Perry at one point did like an Eddie Guerrero tag rope spot where he just took his tag rope, walked down the apron, and tied it to the other turnbuckle. And the ref was like, what are you doing? Get back over there. And he went, okay. And it felt a little random, but it also felt like it added a bit of levity to a match that it is entirely dependent on how they want to portray all of this in terms of how serious it's all meant to be, you know, because Jack Perry coming back, you know, he's out for some sort of revenge against the Young Bucks for not having his back when he hit rock bottom a year ago. And that's all well and good. That's a good driving motivation for that. But doing things like that, it just goes to show that Jack Perry, while a man on a mission, he is a bit more fun. Again, you can cheer for this man. You're meant to enjoy the lighthearted moments of Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Again, I think that goes a long, long way for him. Eventually, they hit the countdown to extinction, beat the Young Bucks after loads and loads of great near falls back and forth. They were like stealing each other's finishes. Right. The Jurassic Express hit the Meltzer driver, or the TK driver, or whatever it's called now. You know, there was BTE triggers, all of this. Fantastic match. No notes. Fantastic. Loved every second of it. And then afterwards, the Young Bucks were slumped down in the corner. You know, they're feeling sorry for themselves. Jurassic Express goes and offers a handshake to both of them. And then the Young Bucks babyface turned deterrent that is Josh Alexander showed up.
I love
the
that
single
name.
guy that is cutting in between the Young Bucks turning babyface again.
Love it.
Beats down Jurassic Express and starts getting in the Young Bucks face, be like, "What are you doing?" Blah, 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 blah. And the Young Bucks are like, man, we're gonna leave. We're gonna feel sorry for ourselves. And they're going up the ramp, and that's when Kenny Omega's music hits. Kenny Omega goes, and he's looking like he's saying to both of them, like, "Well, you gonna go? I'm going." All right, off he runs. He's disappointed in the Young Bucks still, but he runs down. He clears house. You know, he and Jurassic Express end up getting the upper hand, clearing the ring of the Don Callis family as the Young Bucks walk backstage. Now, the one, not even negative, it's just kind of a nitpicky type thing that I have against AEW sometimes, is you don't have to do the big moment on the pay-per-view. I don't necessarily need to see the moment. in this setup of the Young Bucks, like halfway up the ramp, they look back at the ring. They're like, nah, come on. They take a few more steps. They look back at the ring again. They look at each other and they run back to the ring and they fight the Don Callis family and all that. You know, the cliched babyface turn of the team, like helping their friends that are getting the shit kicked out of them. I don't need to see that on this show. You know, it's not like, oh, I've paid my money for the pay-per-view. I deserve to see it. It's not like that. But if you are going to do the tease, I would like the tease to be different enough from the teases that had already been happening on TV.
Right.
You know, like just a new context in some sort of way. I guess in some way that would be maybe Jurassic Express extending the olive branch first. But the result, one way or another, was still Kenny jaw-jacking with the Young Bucks, fighting the Don Callis family, and Kenny and Jurassic Express standing there united while the Young Bucks leave, right? I don't feel like we got any kind of new material out of that compared to what we had gotten. Kind of reminded me of like last year at Full Gear when the 4-way tag match where the Private Party were defending the tag titles. The whole thing was built around the Acclaim having a tease of their breakup. And it's like, that was such a waste of time because the tease they did on the pay-per-view was not different from the teases they were doing on TV. It's like, all right, well, now you sacrifice this whole 4-way match for the sake of doing this tease, but the tease doesn't matter, you know, all that sort of thing, you know? So that's kind of how I was feeling about it. I was much more negative on that Acclaimed thing last year than I am about this. This I still think was a fairly good angle and everything, and it gets Kenny, you know, on the show and all of that, and makes Kenny maybe a bit more like proactive in trying to get the Young Bucks back on side, as opposed to previously they've all just kind of been in the same place at the same time and been like, so you want to stop fucking about, or, you know, like, are we going to be cool? You want to anything like that? Whereas now he like made the point of he's coming out to make the save for Jack Perry, which shows the growth and the mending of their relationship. So good stuff there. But in terms of the context of the Young Bucks, I thought that bit was just a tiny little bit lacking.
I just want to say we're getting one step closer to Super Kick Party.
I miss that song so much.
I miss that song too, man.
It's a great theme.
Yeah, it's a great theme song. I miss the pumps and the trainers. I miss the jackets they used to have. But then again, wait, I'm thinking of the heel version. Bring back the tassels, I guess. Tassel-y, you know.
You can't afford tassels right now.
I'm a bit sad that we're not gonna get a Golden Elite, because I think that's what it was, right? It's gonna be Golden Elite versus Don Callis family, and then
I have that shirt, bro. I have a Golden Elite shirt. They wore those shirts like one fucking time.
Yeah,
it's like a Y2AJ shirt.
Y2AJ is a funny t-shirt. It's one of those things, and is that Mandela effect that actually happened. Yeah, for a storyline, to create a whole tag team for a storyline. What I was gonna say is like, it's a shame that, you know, we're not gonna get the Golden Elite trying to get custody of Takeshita, because that's what's gonna end up. Takeshita's gonna side with the Golden Elite down the line. That's what it was meant to happen, I guess, if we're looking back on it. But you know, timing, it just never and things. I feel like Tony Khan's always like, man, I'm one step closer to getting everything I liked about New Japan. Fuck, who's injured now? Like,
Kota Ibushi has been cursed for like the last 4 years, bro. It's really unfortunate. But I agree. Maybe in 2 years when Kota Ibushi is meant to be back. Who knows?
He's a madman. He might do it in a year and a half. You know.
Yeah, he'll have the John Cena rehab run. It's hard to rehab broken bones the same way.
Yeah, it's true, man.
2 matches left on the show, and then we'll get out of here. We had the Hurt Syndicate defeating the Demand. No Cedric Alexander, like I was hoping for in this show. This was another street fight, basically. You know, this was about the same level of quality as their TV street fight from a couple weeks ago. I thought that this one lacked the big breakout moments that one had for me. Like, I came out of that match thinking that Bobby Lashley looked better than he ever had in AEW.
Yeah.
And this one, I just thought that was a fun match. You know,
I think
good stuff.
They've
But
used up all the bag of tricks, and that's what happens when you face each other like 3 or 4 times in the last month or so.
mhm.
So please have a restraining order against these two teams. As much as I like them, I don't like when I get sick of a feud. That's not what it should be like. But at least we got 2 victories for the demand to establish them in other feuds that's meant to be coming.
Yeah, I agree. That's the main reason that I was hoping that Cedric would show up and MVP would do like, yeah, you were going to wrestle 3 members of the Hurt Syndicate, but I didn't tell you which 3 members. Here's Cedric Alexander. He comes down. It's a new-ish combination, for them to then wrestle, keep the match a little bit more fresh, and maybe Ricochet can then say, hey, we were swindled. You didn't say that we were going to be. We couldn't have prepared for such a thing. We won our shot at the trios titles that you have just beaten the Ops for, or whatever, and you get 1 more month out of it for a title for a new context. No, now I would more likely just kind of like this feud to have run its course. It's a fine little feud. I've enjoyed it in terms of it's been running since July. It's been good fun. July, maybe August, since the Hurt Syndicate lost the tag titles at Forbidden Door, they've been running this, and good stuff. I think they've really helped the demand step up a little bit, but it's time to move on to something new for both. Maybe that's a longer program with the Ops for the Hurt Syndicate, but we will see. Which brings us to the last match on the show, and dare I say my favorite match on the show. Brodito versus Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada. Holy shit. The final in our trio of tag team matches that absolutely blew me away on this day. These 2 teams went out there, and this is the one where like I was going to be happy either way, but I was expecting a title change. I was thinking that I thought Okada and Takeshita were going to win these belts. I was not expecting Okada to get pinned ever, really. And they go out there, they have this match. And holy shit, what a match. Just so much energy, so much fire. I don't know what it was, but Okada made his entrance here, and I was like, this is the look of a man who knows he's going to go out there and have a great match. Like, he had his working shoes on, Okada, when he's really great, like, he can sleepwalk his way to a 5-star match if he wants to, But this is a match where he had plenty to sink his teeth into. He could bully the smaller man of the other team. He could have like a Haas fight type thing with the bigger man of the other team. He had all the interplay with his own partner to go through. And there's so much to love about this match. Like, I could go through the spots that blew me away, which included, but were not limited to, the single greatest mid-air drop kick in the history of pro wrestling. With Okada sniping Bandito out of the skies with a drop kick. And usually it's like they kind of jump into it, but they jump off the top rope, looking to land on their feet, get hit along the way, and then they fall down. This man changed Bandito's trajectory when he hit this man. I made as big a noise for that move as I did for anything in the main event, just out of sheer impressive will. Also, you had everybody loves the double German suplex spot. Well, here you have the triple German suplex spot. An incredible match. There were bits that were funny and a bit wonky, but they called that out on commentary where they tried to do the Macarena thing halfway through, and it caused the baby faces to get cut off and led to a bit of heel heat. And they were even saying like, now's not the time and place. So at least it played into the match that was a dumb idea to do. Maybe don't make your baby faces look dumb, but they recovered and they did their dance by the end, because by the end you had Bandito still reeling from the effects of his shoulder injury, and they were having just this incredible fucking battle. Eventually, Kazuchika Okada, accidentally or otherwise, hits the Rainmaker follow through on Takeshita, and he's very happy about it. Like, he is not like, oh no, what have I done? He's like, suck a dick, I fucking got you. And this is enough to take Takeshita out for the rest of the match, basically. Brody kind of takes care of the rest of him on the outside, make sure he doesn't come back in. But all of this leads to Bandito hitting a one-armed 21 plex on Okada to beat him, pin him, retain the tag team titles, maybe put himself in position for a shot at the unified title between now and the next big show. Who knows? That sounds like a fantastic match as well. But this was a match that probably doesn't cut. It's like just barely a tier below the match of the year in AEW for me. Like, I think there are still a few matches I would put ahead of it. I think possibly a match that involves 2 out of the 4 participants in this match, if we're extending it to Ring of Honor, but an incredible, very top tier match that will go on everyone's list of the best matches of the year, hopefully by the year's end. A fantastic time. My favorite match of the show. Sat, what'd you think?
I think it has been announced that it will be Bandito versus
Fucking
Okada.
there you go.
I think it has been announced.
More to look forward to. Quickman says so in the comments, and Quickman wouldn't lie to me.
Yeah, Quickman is a Quickman. He comments, salute to Quickman, you've been an MVP, and everyone else has been in the chat. We appreciate you guys that's been tuning in and stuck around. What I was gonna say is, in terms of a match, I feel like this match has done a lot for Brody King and Bandito separately and collectively as a tag team. Obviously, they still keep the tag titles, but I feel like for their individual stock, because a lot of times this was the issue in WWE. Sometimes they'll look at a wrestler or they gauge a reaction of individual wrestlers in the team. They're like, this guy's getting quite a reaction. There might be a potential single star. Both of them are kind of like single stars, even though Brody King does have an experience of being in the trios, being in a tag team, because he teamed up with PCO and he's teamed up with Buddy, he's teamed up with Malachi, so he's a noted tag team veteran. He was part of a group with Homicide and Chris Dickinson in Dying Days of ROH, so this guy's been around the houses with teams. But I feel like he's a kind of guy in AEW where you felt like he had a potential to break out and do great things. And it's weird, he's been trios champion as well, so it's not like, but it feels like it's his breakout year. Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. I feel like maybe there's one less person in a group means you get to have more of a spotlight on you. I don't know. But yeah, you can say that since Aleister Black has left, he's had more eyes on him than ever before. And unfortunately, Buddy was meant to have the same year as well, where they meant to rise to the occasion, and kind of like Bandito was getting the rub that Buddy was meant to get. But at the same time, Bandito was getting the rub that he was meant to get before injury. And someone said it on Twitter, and I agree, because I was thinking he is the best booked luchador in all of North American wrestling in 2025, and I'm so happy to see that, because I've always liked the presentation of Bandito. I feel like his wrestling's gotten much better, because there's times when he's a bit sloppy, and it's like neither here or there, but I feel like he's reaching that apex, getting to that next level each match, and even the crowd as well. I feel like the crowd's more with him before, even though he was over from the first moment he faced Jericho. Even though people that knew him, for the ones that have never known him before, the feats of strength is what got him over. But I do feel like this tag team match, him beating Okada, being one of the 3 people that have beaten him alongside Kyle Fletcher, and I'm forgetting the other person that is so obvious that probably is kind of annoying.
In AEW? I think that might be it.
Just him and Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah, I think so.
I've heard it wasn't 3? I've heard anyway.
I don't know.
Congratulations.
Limited company though.
It is limited
one way
company,
or the other.
But yeah, what I was trying to say is that Bandito is getting to that point where he's becoming undeniable to become the first.
Danielson, thank you.
Yeah.
On Dynamite last year, yeah.
Black Yakuza 94, God bless you. Yeah, so it's getting to that point where he is starting to look like a candidate to become the first Hispanic AEW champion. So I feel like you can't prolong it any longer. And I'm happy to go on along with the push. They're getting up there to that next level. And it's getting quite hard to split up the group. Because in your mind, you're like, this is a fun group. When are they going to break up? But you're like, you know what? They gelled so well. But they do have business to conduct in terms of singles run. So as much as I'm happy they won, I'm ready for what's to come afterwards.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, like I feel the same way in that I look at Brody King and I want this guy to be world champion at one point, right? And whether that is as a babyface, because I think he's one of the most likable wrestlers in AEW currently, but I mean, he's got monster heel written all over him. If you
Choking people out.
wanted, yeah, if you wanted to have him be one of those big obstacles for Hangman to try and overcome, I could see that being something to happen between now and All In next year. I'd really like to see him get a bit of that rub. But that to say, I think that I was fantasy booking the breakup of this team on this show. Like, I was fantasy booking the Don Callis family guys win the tag titles, and that's when we get the split. We get the return of Buddy Matthews, the whole deal. The longer they are together and the more excellent fucking matches they have separately and together, the more it is going to hurt when they break up. And that's the point. You're supposed to break my heart by breaking up this team, you know, because I'm supposed to want to see them together. That's just wrestling going well. And if they keep having matches like this, I'm not going to complain that they're not doing the fantasy booking I've done, because I don't care about fantasy booking as long as the stories and the matches are great. And these guys are ticking every single fucking box possible right now. Are they the fucking tag team of the year this year? Like,
I mean,
are Brodito going to win tag team of the year in like the Observer and other publications? Because maybe would they not be? Who else are the real top contenders? Like
the Bucks. I feel like the Bucks are up there in terms of tag team of the year, and in terms of the WWE, they started off well. You know, the SmackDown 6 or whatever it was. You know, they had great matches, and then bloody White 6 fucking ruined the whole thing. But I would say the Bucks are comfortably up there because they've got more body of work. People saying the Knockout Brothers, they just started, they just arrived, you know. So it's gonna, you know, they'll get honorable mentions. So
I don't disagree, but like, how much more of a body of work do the Young Bucks have, like as a tag team in big tag matches through the year? Because like they were gone for the first 4 or 5 months. You know, they only came back at Dynasty. And then they didn't have the only real big tag team match that they had before Brodito then gets together is the match with Swerve and Will at All In. And granted, that might be the tag team match of the year, but I don't know. They've not had a run with the tag titles. They've not been like, outside of being, you know, regularly featured characters, they haven't been quite at the forefront since then. They've kind of taken a back seat to the tag team champions everywhere else. I don't know, man. Brodito probably has my vote right now if the year ended tomorrow.
Which is not, thankfully. We still got a couple of more months.
Still got plenty of time for all these teams to have fantastic matches.
Yeah.
Sat, I think we're about ready to wrap up unless there's anything non-AEW related you want to throw in real quick. Any final overall thoughts on the show or about AEW or anything in between?
Well, I'm excited to see Dynamite, so that's a good thing, right? I feel like they've done enough to whet the appetite to want to see the follow-up, and I hope the follow-up is followed up, because as someone said in the chat, AEW does have a bad habit of not following anything up, and the whole point of when you're following something is you're meant to be rewarded for paying attention. If I'm not being rewarded for being a keen observer of the human condition, I don't like that. So I'm excited to see what's to come. AEW knocked out the park as per usual. Let's get it to the women's tag titles. Let's get it to the female blood and guts. You know, I'm always about female graps. So let's do this.
Hell yeah, brother. I think you basically summed it up. Hopefully Full Gear is going to be another top-notch pay-per-view that we can look forward to. And we've got some top heels that are a bit new in the scene, and some great feuds, great storyline directions, hopefully, that we can sink our teeth into. We will be back with our review of AEW Dynamite this coming Thursday, as we are always on the Wrestle Purists members feed. So make sure that you're signed up as a member if you haven't already, to make sure that you get that, as well as all the other shows that are currently up there on the Wrestle Purist members section. But otherwise, there's been Ruthless discussion. It's been a lovely chatting with you this evening, Sat. There's no way I'd rather spend a Sunday evening than talking with you, my kind sir. And thankfully, it's not too long before we'll get to do it again.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please let everyone know What's Happening, Ruthless discussions where you get me and Tempest breaking down the best of what's going on in wrestling, and also getting to the nooks and crannies of storylines and character progression, because that's what we like to do. So thank you so much for sticking around and checking us out, for communicating in the chat. And yeah, we'll be back again to talk some more Ruthless discussion.
Hell yeah, brother. Can't wait. Until then, everybody have a fine Sunday evening. I hope the Blue Jays are still playing after tonight. We will see how it goes. I got a shoehorn baseball talk in it until we win the World Series or die trying. Until then, take care, y'all. We'll see you this coming Thursday. Have a wonderful week. I'm Tempest. That's Sat. This is Ruthless Discussion, and we're done. Peace out.